Today we're going to look at setting up a Vienna Ensemble instance in your score. A Vienna Ensemble is basically a home for all of your instruments. It's a shell which contains both instruments and plugins. It's similar to Contact Player, if any of you are familiar with that. There are two versions of Vienna Ensemble, VE5 and VE5 Pro, which adds some features. I use VE5, and that's what we're going to look at here today. Here's our Notion score. If you recall from last time, I input these notes by hand to create this score. There are 8 instruments in this piece: flute, English horn, fiddle or first violin, first middle fiddle, first viola, second middle fiddle or second viola, first bass fiddle or first cello, second bass fiddle, second cello, and double bass. Those are Granger's original instrumentation calls, and they're kind of quaint. I rather like them. So in this case, this is the basic score, and the instruments are all input originally as Notion instruments. I prefer to start out that way. So what we'll do next is we'll create a Vienna Ensemble instance. Creating an instance of Vienna Ensemble is pretty straightforward. It's fairly simple. What you do is open Score Setup in Notion. And you go to VSL Special Edition. If you have Pro, you would go to VSL Special Edition Pro. But in this case, I only have VE Special Edition. I don't have the Pro version. Go to Special Staffs and create an empty ensemble. Once you do that, that will create a staff, and it will instantiate an instance of Vienna Ensemble. By the way, when you instantiate Vienna Ensemble, when you create a new instance, it will start Vienna Ensemble, but it first starts Vienna Ensemble's service interface. And this is basically the traffic manager that tells the computer how to access Vienna Ensemble. It contains some limited preference settings, the number of audio outputs, and the number of MIDI inputs that you want to use. You can adjust these as required, but you usually don't need to do anything with those. You'll notice that when you populate an instance of VE Ensemble, it creates a staff in the score. And you might not want that cluttering up your score, and it's pretty easy to get rid of that. You go to Score Setup, and next to each staff are 3 symbols: Settings, Delete, and Visibility. So for the VSL Ensemble staff, if you click the Visibility button, which is the eyeball with the green circle around it, it will hide that staff in the score. So you'll notice it's no longer active when I exit the Score Setup. That staff is now no longer visible. The VE Ensemble instance is still there, but it's no longer showing the staff in the score. And you don't need the staff anyway. You're not going to enter any information on that. That's simply a way to instantiate VE Ensemble. After you've hidden that staff, you may find that you need to get at the Vienna Ensemble instance. You need to add instruments, you need to adjust settings in that, etc., etc. And so you access that instance, that Vienna Ensemble shell, by clicking on the Mixer button in Notion. Button's in the top right. This button brings up the Mixer section. And there are your 8 instruments. Those are the original Notion instruments, plus a channel strip that's been added for the VSL Ensemble. This usually comes in at -6 as a default, with a 0 straight up pan setting. I always adjust that to the widest possible, and I change this volume control to 0. In order to find the Vienna Ensemble instance, you simply click on the top strip of the channel strip itself, the box labeled VSL Ensemble. That brings up the service interface, and then you can click this raise button, and that raises the VSL Ensemble itself to the top of the screen so that you can see it. You'll also notice the 64-bit service information screen shows, and that tells you exactly how many Vienna Ensemble instances you currently have running. In this case, we only have one, and we're only going to have one for this project because there are only 8 instruments. But in some cases, you can have many Vienna Ensemble instances. On larger orchestral works, I'll have 5, 6, maybe 7 different Vienna Ensemble instances all running at the same time. I'm planning a blog about how to set up large ensembles with VE and Notion at a later date. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, so you have now an empty Vienna Ensemble. It has a single master bus in it, and it's ready to receive instruments. There aren't any instruments in it yet reflecting any of the instruments in your score. There's no connection yet between these instruments or the notation on these staves and the Vienna Ensemble itself. So that's enough for one session. We'll look at creating instruments and connecting notation to those instruments next time.